This fall, the Sandman, Adam Sandler, You're My Best Friend Tour.
I feel like we're very good friends now.
Casey Center, Saturday, October 4th. Get tickets now at HiVTix.com.
Chad Leistikow, Scott Dochterman, the two biggest Hawkeye and Big Ten beat writers, together on one show. GameDay Men's Health proudly presents Legends and Listeners. Best enjoyed with an easy Eddie from Big Grove Brewery. This is Legends and Listeners, exclusively on Iowa Everywhere.
Hey, Hawkeye fans, Big Ten fans, Iowa State fans, Iowans everywhere. It is Cy-Hawk Week, which, Scott, it might be the biggest week on the calendar for Iowa everywhere. For those that don't, if you're a Cyclone fan tuning in, let me introduce ourselves. Chad Leistikow of the Des Moines Register. I cover the Iowa Hawkeyes. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic. He covers the nation, but has covered the Hawkeyes in Big Ten for a very long time. We are in the Channel Seed studios to help preview Saturday's big game. This is episode 109 of Legends and Listeners, brought to you by GameDay Men's Health and presented by everything this week on Iowa Everywhere is presented by Fairway Meat and Grocery. So one thing about this Cy-Hawk matchup, Scott, is that there's one player on each team from my town, Adel. Brevin Dahl for the Hawkeyes, Aiden Flora, big punt return last week for the Cyclones. And Adel, we have one grocery store, baby, and it is Fairway. And I couldn't live without Fairway. So we're really happy they're jumping aboard on Cy-Hawk Week. Welcome, buddy. Welcome. I'm excited to talk to you on this show.
Yeah, I'm excited for somebody to go get a top of Iowa sirloin. It's my go-to steak, and I probably need one. I went there today and got some burgers, so I need to fire those up too for the NFL game starting tonight. First one, Dallas.
That's right.
JV Dallas team and Philadelphia, the champions. So you get to watch Cooper DeJean play.
Cooper DeJean, but not Micah Parsons, who's on the stinking Packers now. But yeah, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. My favorite steak for the value is the flat iron at Fairway. They have a great. It's like if they put it on sale, it's like $9.99 a pound. Tremendous steak. Use it for our Mexican food too. So anyway, thanks Fairway. Thanks GameDay Men's Health. I got a fun announcement during the GameDay Men's Health talk a little later. We got a lot to get to today, Scotty. Let's kind of start with some big picture implications of this Cy-Hawk game, because we're going to get, like you and me, we love to get into the weeds of the matchup, and I know that's going to take a while. Yeah. But first, let's frame the whole deal here, buddy. And I love having you on the show because, I mean, you do cover Iowa State as well for The Athletic, and you do a great job with that. And so you, of any Hawkeye beat writer, and I still would consider you one, even though The Athletic doesn't, identify you as such, since you're a big-time national guy now. Of all the Hawkeye writers, though, you know more about Iowa State than anybody, so you're perfect to have on this show. What big, implications here? Big noon kickoff on Fox. What are you thinking about when you think about this game this week?
I think there's a lot of things to think about, and when you take it beyond the game and what it means for everybody locally, that you got to look at it, what it means for their conferences. This is a huge game. I mean, Brett Yormark will be here for the Big 12. I haven't heard yet about Tony Petitti. I would think that he would be here if he's not. And Kirk Ference gets in. And this, you want to talk about the biggest of all, it's Kirk Ference passing Woody Hayes if he wins. The commissioner needs to be here for that. And so I would anticipate him probably being here for that. And but for their individual leagues, this game matters in a big way when you get to December, because when you get to those final spots, as we saw last year, and we're going to see every year, that how teams do head to head, first of all, and then head to head with their leagues. So you have that kind of trickle down effect. Really will matter. And a lot of that could be, let's say Iowa State wins and is able to go on, but then it finishes second again in the Big 12, but it's 11-2 or something like that. And let's say Iowa loses but beats an Indiana, which may finish 10-2. Well, there again, there's the conduit, but how the committee will rank. Iowa State, Indiana for a potential at-large bid. And when you look beyond that, you got the board being stacked, and then you look at the Big 12 in particular wants to prove that it deserves more respect than what it gets from the committee. Last year, only one team. The Big 10 and SEC have thrown out the idea of 2 guaranteed spots for the Big 12. They would each get 4. They do not believe that that should be unequal. They want to be treated like an equal partner. And so these are the games that they have to compete in order to make that happen. I would also say, though, if you're looking narrowly at what this means for the teams in the big picture, this game is clearly more important for Iowa. It's not even close, because Iowa State has already beaten one of the best teams in the Big 12. We know that the Big 12 is going to struggle to get more than one team in a 12-team playoff, potentially 2, but one is where they're kind of lingering unless you get like a one-loss team. However, in the Big 10, there's probably going to be 3 or 4, but they all don't play each other. And so if you get into a situation where Iowa loses this game but goes 7-2 in the Big 10, and they're 9-3, but so is Illinois, so is Michigan. None of those 3 teams play each other. So going to this game is going to really impact how Iowa is viewed. And if Iowa loses this game, 10-2 to me is the line of demarcation for Iowa. And so if you lose this game, you have one more loss on your schedule, or you're not going to a playoff. And you got some pretty heavy hitters on this schedule. So I think for Iowa State, this is all about pride. This is all about continuing to win, beat a rival, beat them at home, which you haven't done in 15 years. Or 14. But it's also, if they lose, it doesn't deter them for what they might accomplish, because there's no more Oklahoma or Texas or any of those heavyweights that traditionally got in their way. They're still going to be a competitive team in the Big 12.
Wow, that was really good. Co-sign on all that. That's good stuff there. I would look at it, all that stuff, agree with, no question. I would look at it even more narrowly for the Hawkeyes, is that they need to see their team play well.
Yeah.
And if they lose this game and Mark Gronowski doesn't look good, now we don't spend a lot of time on this show because we come out on Thursday reviewing the last game, but let's at least touch on that, is, if you lose this game and Mark Gronowski does not look good, then your hopes are very, very dim for the rest of the season. In terms, just what you said, can you really go 9-1 the rest of the way? It doesn't feel like it, probably. This feels like one of those you do need to even have a chance to make a run, especially with Indiana, Penn State, Oregon coming to town. Not to mention Minnesota, Michigan State. Not to mention USC looked great the other day. You got to go there. You got to go to Wisconsin. You got to go to Nebraska. It's going to be a tough sled all the way for Iowa. So this is just one of many difficult games, but it will put them. They need to play well, and they need to win. So it's kind of a double thing. Obviously you can play bad and win. But, you know what I mean?
They've done that for a while.
Yeah, they found a way, but I don't think you can play bad and win against this particular Iowa State team. We'll get to that as we go, but that's where I see it from Iowa's point of view. And from Iowa State's point of view, I think you want to just get that home monkey off your back, that 6-game home losing streak. I think that talking to my colleague Travis Hines, he does not think that that's really much of a factor in this game. They're not looking over their shoulder, figuring out how they're going to lose anymore, because Iowa State has won a lot of close games and tough games here in the past season, plus 2 games here. So I don't know. I still think that that's something on the Iowa side that could be a factor, a little confidence. Hey, we've done this before. We found, we sat out a rainstorm in 19. We, had C.J. Beathard throw a bomb to Vandenberg in 15, and Desmond King return a punt, and I mean, they found all kinds of different ways along the way. I mean, the Brock Purdy, 4 turnover game. I mean, that was, Iowa gained 176 yards, I think, and won that game pretty handily. Iowa finding, I think that's another element of this thing too. And then you mentioned Kirk Ference as well.
Yeah, but I think in a lot of cases that some of that magic or voodoo or whatever you want to call it is kind of, I won't say broken, but it's changed, it's altered. And for a long time there, up until probably the 22 game when Iowa State finally did win in Iowa City, it was like Iowa State, you could almost tell, was so tense, like, when is the dam going to break? When is the bad play going to happen? Because it always happened. Then Iowa's offense was just so pathetic that year. They had one scholarship receiver available in that game that, and then they still missed a field goal at the end that could have tied it and sent it into overtime. That it was kind of like, whew, an exhale. Matt Campbell finally beat Iowa. Then last year, they made the plays down the stretch to win the game. They hit a couple of big plays and then a big field goal, which of course Kyle Conradi, hit a 63-yarder the other day. That's pretty impressive on its own right. So Iowa State now is 7-1 in their last 8 one-score games. They feel pretty good about themselves. And when you have that quarterback there, it's understandable that that's the way they feel. I think I agree with you about Iowa right now is there were aspects they looked very good, but it's hard to get past what the passing game looked like, especially in the first quarter and a half. I mean, I think Gronowski ended up completed 6 out of his last 7 or something like that. So he was okay as the game went on, but it's hard to get the imagery out of your mind from not only the incompletions, that were just mind-numbing, but also some of the completions were kind of behind. And I talked to someone who knows a little bit about it and just kind of like, look, he had pretty high nerves going into the game. He was really amped up. Mm-hmm. And then when things started to get, he started to press because then he noticed that he wasn't doing what he needed to do. And then they kind of calmed him down by just going to the run in the third quarter. But you can't do that, I mean, and I think part of me is like, oh, here we go again. Mm-hmm. You really, another quarterback like this, but I've also seen him do it before. Right. So then that also keeps me back from going, here you are. Iowa is, what's next? You're going to get Arch Manning and he's going to do, 40 yards in a game, it just feels like the same old, but I have seen him do it. So therefore I think that it's possible for him to come out of this.
Yeah, there were some funny Arch Manning, GIFs, clips, whatever. Like kind of, they showed like Arch Manning when he does plays Ohio State, and then the mugshot of like Deacon Hill, So Deacon Hill was a meme for Arch Manning the other day. So yeah, you're right. I do want to thank Iowa Corn. They are part of the Cyhawk series. As you guys know, Iowa Corn Growers Association is also a part of this show this week. Pump it up with ethanol at the pump, and you're helping to support Iowa's farmers. Iowa is the #1 corn growing state. Of course it is. And every choice you make can help support Iowa's farmers. Scott, big deal for Kirk Ference, to get it this week versus UMass. I kind of feel like if you're going to get it against the Cyclones. His 200th career win came against Iowa State in 2023. That was, of course, Rocco Beck's second career start. This will be Rocco's 30th career start. Much better quarterback now than he was then. We're going to talk about Rocco here when Iowa State has the ball shortly, but it will be kind of anticlimactic. I mean, does Petiti have to come next week to the UMass game? If the Hawkeyes lose this, so just go win it, right?
Yeah. Nobody wants that party. I mean,
exactly.
And Kirk most of all.
Right.
No offense to UMass. You're a paid opponent. Just come here and lose. That's what you're here for. Nobody cares about that. What people care about is, and frankly, Chad, there was part of me last year at the bowl game thinking, in some ways, it would be kind of a shame for him to get it against Albany, going into the opener, because that's just not the opponent. It's like you want to celebrate a big win to get this. Well, it doesn't come any bigger in this state than this game.
Right.
And especially at this point, because Iowa State is rolling. But I think Kirk deserves his flowers too as a coach, and as well as Iowa State has played, winning a big game in the opener in Dublin and then coming back and throttling South Dakota. Kirk deserves his flowers on this. I mean, he's had since 2000, since 2019, they've had 3 10-win seasons. He's had 2 division titles. They're since 2015 and all full seasons, they're one of 5 programs to win at least 8 games in every year. I mean, that's rarefied air. Iowa hasn't had a bad year under Kirk over the last 10 years, which, you were there at the end of the Hayden era. Of course, we were watching it when we were kids too, in the first part of it. But the Hayden era, the trajectory was down. I mean, and then there was the one year where it was supposed to go up and it flatlined. 97.
97, yep.
Yeah, I mean, where you thought this team was going to be really good, and then it turned out that they were very, very average. Had a lot of injuries. Kirk hasn't had that happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but for him to weather this, to weather all the storms, and still put out a really good team that believes in him and keep his staff, and very little attrition, meaningful attrition, and through the transfer portal, it says a million things. All that being said, all he cares about this week is getting the W against Iowa State. He doesn't care about his own legacy on this one.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, Scott, but doesn't this feel like a Kirk Ference game, though? This is the type of game where you want Kirk Ference on your side. Like, he gets criticized for certain things. Don't hire your son as offensive coordinator. There's certain things that are very valid, but I feel like your team didn't look, or your quarterback especially, didn't look great last week. The highly paid quarterback. They're under a little bit of scrutiny this week. Not many people are giving him much of a chance this week. And now he's going to and Iowa State looks great. And we're going to keep talking about them here in a minute. But doesn't it kind of feel like one of those weeks where Kirk is a real positive this type of week for the Hawkeyes?
I've said it for years, Chad, and it rings true this week. Kirk Ference is the best coach I've ever seen at handling adversity. A lot of times when they go to Penn State and give up 600 yards and get annihilated 41-14, they come back, narrow focus, and they upset number 2 Michigan. On and on and on. We've seen it over and over and over again. This team loses a game. Everybody's against them. They can't do it. They're sucked. And then, boom, they come back with a win. And he's the perfect coach for this situation. And in some ways, we usually get to the Iowa State game. A lot of times it's Iowa that looks really good, and Iowa State's trying to find its way through everything. The script is flipped a little bit here. And now it's Iowa trying to figure out some things. Iowa State looks like a machine, after 2 games. But and I think they probably like this. If you were to ask them that, oh, okay, nobody believes in us, we're all right with that, being the underdog. They like that in Big Ten play. They're going to like it here. Because now, I can't even tell you the last time Iowa State was favored. We're going back to probably 2001, maybe? Something like that? I'd have to look it up. They had to
be favored in 21, didn't they? Or no?
No, Iowa was.
No. Okay.
And
it's usually like a 3-point spread. Like, Iowa's usually favored by 3. This year, Iowa State by 3. So
yeah. Right. That's just a home court situation. So,
yeah.
So I don't know. I think Kirk is built for this moment. It would be a perfect way for him to spike the ball in the end zone to go past Woody Hayes that, hey, this is a game against our in-state rival, the one that he struggled with the most right out of the bat. For 4 straight losses to open his career, including the 0-2 team, which was his only regular season loss, he had to hear it a lot. And we talked about it in the offseason. He admitted that there's a lot of pressure that comes with this game. And for him, but maybe the pressure's off him a little bit more on Matt Campbell because, they got a pretty good team and they've proven it. And Iowa's got a lot of work to do from game 1 to game 2.
Yeah. And go back to the 2000 5 game. Iowa lost that. Iowa was ranked 8th, and they lost 23-3. Drew Tate got hurt in that game. But ever since then, so that's what, 19 seasons? They didn't play in COVID, obviously. Yeah. But Iowa State has not beaten Iowa by more than 3 points. Their margins of victory were 2. It was 15-13. 2011 was a 3-point triple overtime win. 2012, 9-6. 2014, 2017. Yeah. 2022, 10-7. And then last year, 20-19. So look at those margins. 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 1. Yeah. And otherwise, Iowa's won every game. So for 2 decades now, Ference has had Iowa in the game, at least, at minimum against Iowa State, even when they've had good teams. Now, certainly Iowa's been better most years, but still, this does mean a lot to him. They circle these games. They do. They won't say they do, but they do. And they do say they circle trophy games. And Scott, this was the only trophy game they lost last year, too. I bet he has not let them forget that either. That's the only trophy they don't have right now.
Right. And these games, they've caused them indigestion. The losses that you feel like you've won, because they dominated thoroughly that first half, and yet they came away with a touchdown and 2 field goals. It should have been a minimum 17-0. But you let them get back in. They hit a big pass play. They got 2. Obviously, they had 2 outstanding wide receivers. They were very tough to cover, and 1 great kick. It goes 3 feet the other way, and we're talking about a different thing altogether here. But that it does matter. And in fact, I was told on the 21 game in particular that Kirk was pacing pretty good in pregame at the hotel. He was really, I don't know, because it really eats him up. And I was told that this game and a lot of these games, it just he really gets nervous and before they hit the stadium. And one of the other assistant coaches who's still there told him. He goes, if you think you're tight, imagine how their a-holes are puckered up. Right. So, and it's like, because they're dealing with the same thing. I mean, it's like Brock Purdy and Breece Hall, and they want to win this game. It's a top 10 showdown. Well, it's kind of the same situation here. I wonder how loose Iowa State is this time around. But it matters. And when people say, "Oh, he doesn't care about this game," I don't even give them the time of day anymore, because it matters in a big way for everybody involved. It's something that truly drives them to win.
Well, Scott, I know you know this, but GameDay Men's Health will tell you, and will tell our listeners, that they can get you back in the game, and they truly do mean it. Us old dudes who can benefit from their testosterone replacement therapy, It has done wonders for me. You and I got started it around May of last year. It's a weekly shot, super simple. They do a lot of other stuff too, but I'm on the testosterone replacement therapy. And Scott, in 17 days, I'll be lining up in downtown Des Moines to do the Midwest Greater Des Moines Half Marathon. I've never done a half marathon before. But thanks to the extra energy, the better health, the better disposition, the better performance in all areas of my life, I've got confidence that I can go run this thing, run 13.1 miles, and do okay in it. So I'm thankful for GameDay Men's Health. I've got a 10-mile run scheduled this Friday morning. I can't wait. I know I'll know what I'll have. I know I will have what I need energy-wise and strength-wise, thanks to GameDay Men's Health. So get connected yourselves, guys, with GameDay Men's Health. It's awesome. You can get a private, free, no-obligation consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com, or you can stop by one of the locations in Ankeny, West Des Moines, or North Liberty. And I'm kind of annoyed because I saw NASCAR driver Kyle Busch is now... He's now a rep for GameDay Men's Health. I thought we were kind of the big spokesman, but so he's kind of gone over the top of us now. But he's kind of going on more on like the erectile dysfunction thing, I think. But anyway, so Kyle Busch is now a proponent of GameDay Men's Health.
There's a joke in there about Game Day Men's Health and a guy named Bush, but we're not going to go there tonight. But I will say, as all of you know who have heard, I've been, it's been a godsend for me. I'm at a level that I haven't been since my early 20s. When it comes to weight, and a lot of it's from Game Day Men's Health. And I know some of you that just started in the last couple of weeks have asked me how, when do you feel it? And I'm like, you don't really feel it. And it's not like you just, you're like Ivan Drago in Rocky IV and you like in the steroid, you're out there hitting, 2,000 pounds of pressure. It's more subtle to where I noticed when things got really good for me, when I could go to the gym and have a pretty strong, rigorous workout and weightlifting regimen, come back home, mow the yard, do another couple hours worth of yard work and not feel tired, not feel like I can't even get off the couch to take a shower, nothing like that at all. And I'm like, you know what? That's why this thing is working for me. So, I'm below 200. I feel really good about that. And now the goal is just keep going and do it in a safe and healthy way. And so I think for all of you, just get that jolt in your life, get that little flicker back and you're all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. All right, Scott, we're going to get into the matchup now. We're going to do when Iowa State has the ball, later when Iowa has the ball, look at every little aspect that we can think of, within reason. We're probably not going to go 2 hours tonight, but we might go a little longer than our usual hour. So anyway, Scott, when Iowa State has the ball, obviously we start with Rocco Becht. My God, the guy was 19 for 20 the other day. I watched the South Dakota game, 55-7. They scored on every possession except the one where they kneeled down at the 1 yard line at the end of the game. So this is a team that's really clicking right now. And Rocco Becht, he is being mentioned now. It's 2 weeks in, 1 week in for most teams, as a Heisman Trophy potential, but man, he really does look like it. When you watch his footwork, Scott, it's just miles different than what we saw in Kinnick last week.
No question, he's the full package, and he's really, not only is he talented and accurate, and he's got the intangibles, he's got the it factor, and that's as tough as anything because there's going to be some adversity for both teams. There may be a turnover. There may be, Iowa may go on a long touchdown drive or something like that. They may be behind. And none of them, especially him, think that they're going to be out of it because he's done it so many times before. He's led them to comebacks against Kansas State just a couple weeks ago. Last year, several times. That they have a lot of confidence in him, and why wouldn't you? I mean, 19 to 20, I don't care if you're doing that in 7-on-7, that's pretty good. And, and to do it against, the number 4 team at FCS, which they weren't as impressive to me as I thought they would be, just because I thought, they had a really good drive in the first quarter, and then that was about it. But I'm as impressed as I am with him. The players that I think are the biggest, most challenging matchup for Iowa, even over Rocco Becht, are Ben Bramer and Gabe Burkle, especially Bramer. Bramer is a dude.
Big. He's 6'7", 255.
And he runs, he's good. I mean, he is.
Yeah, he is good.
And I tweeted this out that watching the game that they've had great ones. Charlie Kolar's in the NFL. They've had some really good tight ends. Iowa's had some good tight ends too. Bramer may be as good as any of them that we've seen. And he kind of, and I don't use this one lightly, it kind of reminds me of Travis Kelce. Mm-hmm. And just his build and how he's able to find himself and get open. And he was hurt most of last year, but he's a mismatch. It's going to be really hard. And if you're Iowa, you're like, okay, how do we defend this guy? You're obviously going to be in zones, but he can maneuver through the zone pretty easily. Do you play 4-3? They're going to play 4-3 a lot, but are you going to play 4-3 and bracket him with a backer? Or are you going to have, somebody like Wampa is probably who I would recommend being on him because he's big and physical too.
He's taller. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably, but you can't neglect the zone. He's going to get his. You're just going to have to make sure he makes tough catches, but then you can't neglect Gabe Burkle, who I think it was a real miss for Iowa. He's from Cedar Rapids Prairie. They never offered him. They didn't do anything for him. And Iowa State did. and now he's a huge contributor. And they run 12 and 13, and in a few places 14 personnel.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of like what you saw a few years ago with the Hawkeyes.
Yeah. See, I don't know if you want to go 4-3. It's going to be an interesting. So we had Seth Wallace, Iowa linebackers coach, assistant head coach, on the Zoom. We get an assistant coach every Wednesday, okay? And so he was on the Zoom today. So I was asking him mostly about the cash, like what do you do against their tight ends? So this exact conversation, because we both know how important this matchup is and how dangerous it is for Iowa, because number one, your linebackers are. They've all started one game in their careers. They're unproven. Jaden Harrell, Carson Shire, Jackson Rexroth, all unproven. They're veterans, but they're unproven. So do you go? See, if you go 4-3, you take Zach Lutmer off the field, Scott, and that's a negative right off the bat. Taking him off the field, he's one of your better defensive players because you got three of their best players are safeties. That's why, folks. Yeah. If you're listening and not familiar with Iowa's 4-2-5. But if you keep him on the field, does that hurt you in the run game? And, can Lutmer hold up against the run like a Rexroth would in the 4-3 or the 40, as they call it?
Yeah.
I kind of so I asked Seth this, okay, and his answer was, it depends on down and distance. It depends on matchups. It depends on what combination they have in the game. It depends on if we think Lutmer told me this yesterday. It depends on if we think they're going to run or pass, who we're going to have in the game. So it's not just as black and white as, okay, there's 12, here's 43. Yeah. Wisconsin will do that against Iowa. They'll match personnel. I think this is a case where Parker and Wallace are both going to have to really go on feel, Scott. They're going to have to go with their keys. They're going to have to they're going to have to take some chances with personnel out there, because I think you need Lutmer out there as much as possible, as much as you can take. And if it burns you, you maybe have to go back to the 4-3, but I think you want Lutmer on the field. He's got speed. He's got athleticism. He's more likely to undercut a pass and return it to the house. He's very athletic, very good vertical jump. I just think that whole thing is fascinating. How do you think they're going to do it? to cover these guys? I mean, it's a tough challenge for Wallace and Parker. It's a tough challenge for everyone Iowa State plays, but especially with this particular personnel, which has some inexperience in the linebacker unit.
The only team that they're going to face that has similar personnel like this is Minnesota, because the tight end factor, although Iowa State's tight ends are as good as they're going to face, and that includes any Big Ten team down the road. That is a tough matchup. I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you have Jack Campbell out there. It's still a tough matchup because you're talking about pros. If I were to get creative here, and I don't know that they're going to do it, but this would be a recommendation that I would consider if I were them for one game only, because you're dealing with multiple tight ends on almost every down. I would play Xavier Wampa at cash. I would have Cohen play free. I would have Lutmer play strong. And I would have Wampa play cash because he's the biggest of the safeties. He's the best matchup. Play over the slot, but also play head up on the tight ends. And I would do it just one game. And, and just that's how I would match up, because you do need size out there. And, Lutmer is as athletic as he is. I'm not going to call him Cooper, but he's got some of the same skills.
Right. That's
still, when you're going against 6'7", you've got to be careful, because he could push you around and it does make it look like he's pushing off. So I just, that's where I would go.
I like that. That's a good one. Hadn't thought of that, but yeah, he is Iowa's tallest safety. Lutmer's, he's lucky if he's 6 feet, but he is very athletic, about 210. Here's the other question, Scott. With all the attention that the tight ends need to get, you can't just say, well, we're just going to play what we play. You've got to give them attention. And I think Phil Parker and Seth Wallace will. I could tell by Seth's answer today. They've thought about this. Yeah. You're also going to leave your corners, potentially, Scott, on more of an island. Now, this year's offense runs through the tight ends more so than the receivers. Talking to Travis Hines, sounds like the receivers haven't quite come along yet for Iowa State. Doesn't mean they're not good players. But TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, they're big question marks coming into the season. That too could be a concern for me for Iowa in this game.
Yeah, their receivers have not stepped up the way that they expect them to. We'll call him Brett because I'm not familiar enough with his last name. He was probably the most productive one. Eskildsen.
If you want to jump in, Aiden, you can help us.
Yeah, right.
I've heard Eskildsen.
Thank you.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
But, there have been some drops. Chase Sewell was supposed to be a dude and doesn't have a catch yet. He's got a drop and he's got, 4 targets and now is this his big game to come around? And it's possible. So you've got to be careful there. But as much as we're talking about matchups with the secondary, potentially even with the second level against, in zones, the receivers, leaving them on islands with the cornerbacks, Iowa will get nowhere on defense if it does not get a rush. And last week, there were 2 sacks. There was some pressure. It needs to get better pressure, just flat out, and that's up the middle. They have some opportunity up the middle. I do think that Iowa State is a little vulnerable in the interior 3, that they're okay, but they've got some question marks, and they've had, an injury that's kept, Trevor Burr off, I think, the field the whole time, and he's one of their better offensive linemen. So, on the edge, they're okay at left tackle, but the rest are a little suspect at times. But Iowa's D-line is going to have to 2-gap in the run game because they're going to be a little bit on an island, and then they're going to have to get to Beck, at least displace him, disrupt the passing game, potentially take him down and force punts, because you can't let him have time because he is good enough. It doesn't matter how good your coverage is. He'll complete a pass.
Yeah, I actually was pretty bullish on the defensive line coming out of the Albany game. I know they didn't get the huge numbers, but I thought Kenneth Merriweather really flashed as a 4th defensive end. I think they've got Kelvin Bell has a really nice rotation on defensive ends where you can send those guys in waves. You're not just relying on a handful of guys. Max Llewellyn, he's going to be up for this game, you better believe. Ethan Herkett, another Iowa kid. How about this, Scott? If you take Rexroth into play, 8 of Iowa's 12 starters on defense are from the state of Iowa. That's remarkable because you think about the guys that replaced the guys from last year, it's almost all Iowans, Shire, Harrell replaced Higgins and Jackson. Llewellyn replaces Craig. Lutmer replaces Castro. I mean, on and on. You're plugging in extra Iowans here. So, pretty cool, actually. But I like this defensive line, and I think Kelvin kind of kept Bryce Hawthorne under wraps a little bit last week, too. He didn't play him very much. No, we know he's a really good player at D-tackle. I think the defensive line for Iowa, we talked about the things that kind of give us pause about slowing Iowa State down, and Iowa State's going to move the ball. This is not one of those games you can win 10-7. All right, no. You're gonna be lucky to hold them to 20. But I do think the defensive line is where Iowa has the biggest advantage in terms of potential advantage, because Iowa State has not run the ball great, and if Iowa can make them one-dimensional, as you said, I do think they have chances to win one-on-ones. Aaron Graves, Bryce Hawthorne, Max Llewellyn, all these guys. Brian Allen has a lot of explosion. Herkett's more of a kind of a safe guy. He'll protect the edge, help you on the run. Probably not going to get to the passer as much just with sheer moves. But I like this defensive line. And Seth Wallace spoke on Wednesday about they just want to make Beck to go to his second read. Take away whatever he's looking at first, disrupt him enough with either coverage or the pass rush that he has to check off that first read, because that's when he's really good, that first read.
Yeah, no question. And he's going to get some of his, and you've got to be prepared for that. This is a game where, you just mentally, you've got to coach it this way. You've got to give them 17 points. You got to say that they're going to get at least 17 here. What we've got to do is ensure we get to 24, 27, because maybe they'll get a little more, maybe our defense is playing better and they're not playing well. And, there's going to be some adversity for both teams. The thing is, they've got to, again, it's small, it's detail. It's the little things that will matter. Making him get to his second read, perfect observation. by Seth. Of course, he's got spent already probably 50 hours this week, looking at it. It's also things like, making sure you don't give up the explosive plays. Explosive plays cost them last year. It cost them the game. The 75-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Knoll, where, there was miscommunication in the secondary. Great player, you blow a coverage, touchdown. And then late in the game, and and that one, I'm gonna lay it on Phil, to let Sebastian Castro in this, go one-on-one with Jalen Knoll, and a pro beat a pro, but that's tough coverage for somebody, and unless you get a pass rush. So disruption, tying up blockers up front to limit the running game, because Carson Hansen's a tough runner. He's the type of runner that Kirk Ference would absolutely love, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He just looks like that.
Absolutely.
He'd love him. He'd love him. Don't know much yet about the receivers, because their receivers haven't proven much yet. But, this also could be a breakout game. Those things happen. But one other thing I'll mention about Iowa State is that as good as they played, to win against, especially in the second half against Kansas State, and as dynamite as they looked last week, they still have to keep playing. They have not arrived yet, and this is the next step in the process for them. And if they could do that, then more power to them. But this is a different vibe. You're at home. You're against your rival. You've had ups and downs with this team, and they've already expended a lot of energy and a lot. Even coming back and playing the way they did on short rest, basically from Dublin, was a big thing.
Yeah.
But now you got to get ramped back up. Sometimes that emotional stress can burn you out, and so they're going to have to figure a way to fight and persevere and go through everything for 4 quarters. And Iowa has not expended that kind of energy yet. So I mean, it's about game day men's health for both of them.
Yeah, right. No defensive lineman played more than 30 snaps for Iowa last week, so they saved those guys. They saved those guys up pretty well for this game. One last thing, and then we'll get to when Iowa has the ball. Scott, is I just wonder how many blitzes. Parker is a low blitz guy. They're about 17%, 20% blitz team over the years. That's a very low number in football. Iowa believes in that. Philadelphia Eagles, that's how they, with Vic Fangio last year, that's how they did it too. They didn't blitz much. They relied on, Cooper DeJean and others to make plays in the back end. But I do wonder if this is a week where you just have to take some more risks, because you do have to slow them down. You can't let them, and we're going to get to this when Iowa has the ball. You can't let them take 8 minutes off the clock on a drive. You're going to have to take some chances. You just can't let them just get down the field, because they will kill you in the red zone, because they've got all the red zone weapons and you don't. That's going to be tough to stop those tight ends in the red zone. So I think he's going to have to take more chances. I don't know if he's willing to. He did in 2019, and it worked with A.J. Epinesa, getting in there. A lot of blitzes from linebackers brought him back in that 18-17 win. I think he may have to dig deep into the blitzes, maybe go closer to 30-35% in this one, just to try to make some plays. They didn't create any turnovers last week.
Yeah, exactly. And that, if there was one thing on defense that probably disturbed me from Iowa, it was the lack of turnovers. I mean, there was one that you could probably argue was a turnover, the strip sack by Aaron Graves that they ruled him down before, even though the ball was coming out while he was going down. That was kind of a dumb blank call by the official, to say he was down before he hits the ground. But either way, there was no tipped pass that ended up in somebody's hand. There was no forced fumble. That has to change, because if there's one key stat in this series, over the last 11 games, the winning team is 8-0-3 with the turnover margin. Mm-hmm. So the 3 ties in the turnover margin, and then 8 victories out of those 11. The winning team gets that done. So if you're -2, it's going to be hard for either team at -2 to win this game. It's just going to be really difficult. But I'll tell you what, Chad, if you're not at the game, if you're not in the parking lots, or you're not at home, why don't you go to Big Grove? There's 4 great locations throughout Iowa. You've got it in Cedar Rapids. You've got it in Iowa City and South Iowa City. You've got it in Des Moines, which is where I'll be on Friday afternoon with Chris.
There it
Hassel.
is. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. And I only met Chris in person once. So
4 o'clock at Big Grove in Des Moines on Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that
Hassel and Dochterman. Wow, what a dynamic duo.
Yep. I got some friends meeting me there, so I'm kind of nervous about that. But and then of course you got the OG Big Grove in Solon. So the food is top shelf. There's nothing better than the food that you get there. As we know from our experience with Ben McCollum, Chad, he likes to go to the one in Solon for the food. He could have stayed in Iowa City and had the same thing, but I think he got comfortable there. But what they're really known for, Chad, is this, and that's the Easy Eddie. Where's the camera? There it is.
There it is.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Easy Eddie, and then the neighborhood beer as well. So that's the Pilsner. And now we're getting into Oktoberfest season. So you're hitting me right in the wonderful spot there. So 1939, celebrate the Ironmen with an amber ale. And of course, their signature Easy Eddie, which everybody seems to like, and I agree with that. And you know who else likes it? Beth Getz likes it. She's an IPA girl, so
How about that?
Yeah, and the Citrus
stat.
Surfer. Yeah, there you go. And the Citrus Surfer, that's also very, very popular. So, so if you're not going to make it out to Ames and fight the traffic, if you feel like you don't want to stay home, you want to go out and about, check out one of those 4 locations for Big Grove in the state of Iowa.
So, Scott, when Iowa has the football on Saturday, this is where most of the attention has been for the Hawkeyes since Saturday's game against Albany, and before the Albany game, to be honest. Yeah. But, what are we going to get from Mark Gronowski? Let's start with that. Obviously, didn't have the passing performance he wanted. He called it disappointing. I called it disappointing. Certainly underwhelming would be another good word for that. 8 for 15, 44 yards. Did have a touchdown. Also rushed 11 times for 39 yards and a touchdown. Cramped up, left the game in the third quarter. He basically said, again, to refresh fans that may not have, Iowa State fans that may be listening to this, he said he was basically like an 8 or 9 on the anxiety scale all day long, like watching football. You know how it is. Like, I made this comparison on our Hawk Central show. It's kind of like you're wet. It's your wedding day almost, and you're getting married at 5, and you're just like, it's you've been with this person before, but it's like this is a big moment. He's played football before, but this is kind of a big moment. And your legs get a little wobbly, and you're nervous because you want everything to be perfect. You want everything to go well. And I just feel like that's kind of what hit Gronowski. We'll see. I mean, maybe he just throws dirt balls, for 5 weeks here, and then we have to start calling for the benching of Mark Gronowski, the $2 million man. But almost a week later now, Scott, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt here. That it was all nerves. The cramping does suggest he's the only one that was really cramping. Maybe Bo Stevens a little bit too, but. That he was really wound up. And that seems to be the case. Sounds like he's been really good in practice this week. We'll see on Saturday. But what do you expect from Mark Gronowski this week?
This is an awfully big game, and after feeling like he put a lot of pressure on himself before, he's going to put a lot of pressure on himself now. But this is the game to put your pressure on. Last week was kind of dip your toe in the water, and it was like, what happened? And for the first quarter and a half, I'm just like, oh my God, really? Really? We've experienced Deacon Hill, okay? We've experienced Kate McNamara's yips and ups and downs, and Spencer, we get more farther removed from Spencer, and he looks more and more like Nate Stanley, and Nate Stanley looks more and more like Josh Allen. So it's like, come on, you guys can do better than this. And throughout the game, I'm just like, oh, what have they done? And I'm thinking, and then I start to go, he is pretty good, right? I seen him play pretty well. He played pretty well, winning 2 championships, winning the FCS Player of the Year award. He's got, he rushed for 38 touchdowns coming in, or he has 38 now. It's just, he's done it before. So okay, there's your mulligan. It was a bad, bad, bad day. I hope that I'm sure he looked at the tape and was horrified by, a couple of the passes. One where Sam Phillips was breaking open in the end zone, and that's a touchdown all day and night. And he short hopped it by like close to 10 yards. And I'm like, whoa, that's not good. And it didn't get touched because I watched it a couple of times. Then there was like the one where he kind of like pooched it over the running back.
I know. I don't even know what that was.
Like, and what it says to me is you're aiming the ball now. And when you're pitching in baseball, you don't aim, you pitch. You aim in darts. You definitely don't aim in football. So what are you doing? So all that being said, this is one of the games why you got Mark Gronowski. It's a big game.
It is.
He's had big moments. And he's going to have to prove it. And because there's a lot of people now that are going, you lied, when they're pointing at me. What are you telling me this? And I'm like, I saw better than this. So now he has to, but he doesn't care about me, but he cares about himself because he has another performance like this. Everybody will be calling for Hank Brown, and rightly so, I will add.
And the reason you didn't give a prediction of how he's going to do is because we don't know. Like, we don't know what we're going to see this Saturday. I mean, if he had gone out and played kind of what we would expect him to, I don't know, something like, 14 for 20, 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and be like, yeah, that's probably about what we expected, maybe a little less. But yeah, like his over-under this week for passing yards is like 136. His over-under rushing yards is like 28. So, even the betting market's not expecting a ton from him. But, Scott, I do think – so here's what I think about Gronowski this week. I think that Tim Lester will be – I think he will be aggressive because Iowa State's weakness is with its young safeties. Kansas State beat them over the top for 2 long touchdowns. I think you have to test that. You have to test that, or they will load up on the run and they will make things miserable for the Hawkeyes. I went back. I had someone help me on this actually. Caleb Johnson rushed for 187 yards against the Cyclones last year, but 144 yards came on 4 carries. He had a 27, a 37, a 26, and a 54. His other 21 carries went for 43 yards in that game. Kirk mentioned the feast or famine of Caleb Johnson. So what I'm saying is, Scott, you can't just run. I mean, maybe you can, but I am leery that Iowa is just going to run against this 3-3-5 and just get 5-6 every time, like they did last week against Albany. They could get 8 or 9 every time they wanted to against Albany. They had 1,000,000 8 or 9 yard runs. I just don't know if you can consistently do that. You're going to have to do some stuff through the air. But I will say this also, Scott. I do think Gronowski's legs give Iowa a really unique opportunity in this matchup. I think it is the one, and I'm going to be writing this in my prediction column. It gives them a chance to really shorten the game. Long possessions. We saw Iowa had a ton of long possessions the other day. I know it was Albany. But with Gronowski, you can convert 3rd and 3. If you don't get it, go convert 4th and 1. Mm-hmm. He has that ability to go get those first downs with his legs, with the read out. He takes a defender away because he can run. And Iowa hasn't had that since C.J. Beathard. And you better believe he's going to put his head down and give his all this week, Scott. There's no question in my mind. He's going to put his body on the line, no matter if fans don't like it or not. He's going to do everything he can to win this game.
Mm-hmm. I think in this case, if he can throw deep when available. Now, they run an umbrella coverage, basically 3 safety deep, 3 deep look, and they try to keep everything in front of them. So you may not get as much of a look. Last week, Albany, last year was more of a man team, 0 coverage, and they flipped it, went straight cover 2, which it means run. They don't have 7 in the box. I mean, they're backing up. You could blow them off the ball. If Iowa State stays in a 3-3-5, run the ball, because I'll be frank, in the front seven, they've got some decent players, but only Orange is the guy that can beat you. Mm-hmm. Iowa has a damn good offensive line. And I mean, it proved it, ran for 310 yards last week. And even though, yes, it was an FCS team and it's not any.
They could have run for 400.
They could have, it was just,
they took the foot off the gas in the fourth.
Yeah. I mean, they just, took the air out of the ball. But against Iowa State, Orange in the front 6 or 7 or whatever is tough. No question. He's an NFL dude. The Ikenna on the edge, pretty good player. The backers last year impressed me against Iowa. They haven't been very impressive this year thus far. Against whether it was Kansas State or South Dakota, they've been okay. Iowa can play slam ball here. I would expect them to play more of a 4-2-5. Have either a backer out and then have an edge type of player, stand up edge on the line of scrimmage, or even bring it down to a 5 at times, because Iowa will gladly, if you want to go 3-3-5, do it. Iowa's going, please do, because they can take Logan Jones, have a guard hit right off the snap, then slip over to the backer. They'll take 5 yards every single play. That's what they'll get.
And Iowa played a ton of 12 last week, Scott, almost exclusively after they told Gronowski to stop throwing, basically. Yeah. And they used 5 different tight ends. So it's not the same level of receiving tight ends probably that Iowa State has. But, do you think Iowa goes a lot of 12 this week to just force Iowa State to come up?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think they could go either 11 or 12. That's pretty much all they run anymore anyway. They don't do the right. Brian Ference had like 5 or 6 different formations and stuff. It's pretty much exclusively 12 or 11. Mm-hmm. I think in this case, make them play bully ball. Let's go. We'll play 7 up front, and you've got to match us up, because if you're not going to bring the safety anywhere near the line of scrimmage or any of them, then we're just going to continuously drag you. And Iowa State does not want to play that game either, because if they get pummeled, 10 plays, 75 yards, and then Iowa forces them 3 and out, because Iowa's good enough to do that too on defense once in a while, and then all of a sudden get the ball back and just drive again, that's not good for them. Morale-wise, physically, and and Iowa's got dudes up front, and I don't think their tight ends are that bad either. We didn't see much out of them, but I think they're okay. Nobody's Ben Bramer, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, Stranga, Ortworth, Hayden Large. Kirk Ference has made a comment that he's one of the most improved players in the team, which is odd for a grad. But you can tell that, they used him more than Ortworth last week. So you can tell they really like Hayden Large. He's kind of like that H-back type. Scott, my understanding is, and you can probably give me a better idea of this, that Iowa State is not real deep up front on defense. Defensive line is pretty thin. So if you can get to the fourth quarter and you are running the ball effectively, that is another way that Iowa can win this game, is by wearing down their defensive line. And we saw, Iowa did that a lot. When they won their games last year, that's usually what happened. Think about the Minnesota game, dominated the second half of that game. Now, having Caleb Johnson helped, of course. But Iowa's offensive line is really good. Just because it was Albany, that didn't matter. They were just absolutely dominant last week. And I thought Cade Pieper was tremendous. I asked Jennings Dunker about how he thought Pieper played, and he said he didn't make any errors. He played. He's like, I got my eye on him all the time. They're like really close. He plays right guard. Dunker plays right tackle. He thought Pieper played great. The Pro Football Focus people thought he played great. If Pieper is a dude, and I think he is a dude. I've thought that this was his first start, but he's going to be really good. I'm real interested to see how this goes for Iowa's offensive line this week against Big Citrus, and can Cade Pieper, Cade Pieper, can he take on Big Citrus? I kind of think it might be interesting to see this week. So And I thought left tackle acquitted itself pretty well. I know it's just Albany, but I think they feel pretty good about Trevor Locke. So this offensive line's good. These receivers are good. They just didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
Phillips was open. Anderson was open. They didn't use Weechin much except on the touchdown, but I think he could be a sneaky weapon this week too, Scott.
Yeah, Iowa's, wide receivers, you just kind of almost give them an incomplete because they were open and the ball didn't get there, or it was wide. And so I could see that they were a little bit frustrated, but they were trying their best to kind of I think it was the non-touchdown, or the one that Sam Phillips was kind of standing there like, seriously? It was wide open and it didn't hit me. But no, I think that they have an opportunity to have some success if the quarterback can get the ball there. And I think there is a question because we have eyes. We saw what happened last week. But I think on the other side is he's done it before. So if he can do it before, because this offensive line is, I'm not going to shy away from it, is one of the 3 best in the Big Ten, with Penn State and Oregon. And its ability to play slam ball, you don't want to get in that game if you're Iowa State. Now, Iowa, of course, not having Kamari Moulton is going to be a little bit of a challenge for them. But Xavier Williams came in and played a heck of a game. He looked good. And TJ Washington, and Jazz Patterson, all he does is come in and hit the hole hard and get yards, It's like
did that names 2 years ago. Remember that?
Yes.
59 yards.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I remember that pull that you had Connor Colby,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Flattened the end on a power. And so, I think this is, they're more than capable of doing that. And if they get behind, if it's 10-0, don't even phase it. Just make sure you do it. And defensively, you're just going to have to make sure Carson Hansen doesn't get going too much because he can also play bully ball for the Cyclones. But
so, any other aspects on offense for Iowa before we get to our pick predictions? And we got one other fun topic at the end of the show.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I think right now it's time to discover how the plumbing industry can be when you choose a customer-first, independently owned and operated business like Ackerman Plumbing. Ackerman Plumbing services the Iowa City area, and we're thankful for their support here on Iowa Everywhere's Legends and Listeners and Instant Iowa. Ackerman is only in the residential plumbing business, so your calls matter and will always be answered in a timely manner. Whether it's for a plumbing emergency, routine service and maintenance, equipment replacement, or upgrades like tankless water heaters and water filtration systems, call Ackerman. We love a business that's growing too. Ackerman is looking for another service tech to join their team. And if that is you, or if you know someone, reach out to Ackerman Plumbing. Shout out to the best Ackerman team: Corey, Stacy, Aaron, Nathan, all the rest. Visit ackerman-plumbing.com for 5-star residential plumbing services in serving the Iowa City region. And Lord knows, with me and my high water table here in North Liberty, Iowa, and the amount of problems I've had with my sump pump destroying my basement one time, Ackerman will be first on my list. And I think I'm going to give them a call here just to have them look over things, because one year, Chad, and this was actually going right into Iowa State week in 2008, and it was pouring down rain, and my sump pump went wacko. And so I was outside, I had to use a hose because our corrugated piping was smashed in our front lawn. No. I had to use a hose practically all night to ensure that it emptied. And the next day, Kinnick Stadium was flooded. And that was for the Iowa State game that Andy Brodell returned a punt 89 yards for a touchdown, and I was doing it on no sleep that day. And I really don't want to ever have to experience that again.
Help us, Ackerman. No, we're really appreciative of Ackerman jumping in. It's nice to have Iowa City sponsorships for our show. Really appreciate that. Scott, I feel like this game, I feel like Iowa's path, I've said this on our Hawk Central show too, I feel like Iowa's path to victory is more narrow than Iowa State's. Iowa State can win in a lot of different ways this weekend. Iowa State can win. Iowa State probably has more ability to run away in this game. They have if one team is going to win by blowout, it's probably more likely going to be the Cyclones. I mean, if they get up 21-3, something like that, is Mark Gronowski going to bring them back with his arm? You don't feel great about that. But if Iowa got up, like, let's say 13-0 or 19-7, you feel like Iowa State can come back from that too, just like they did last year. So I do feel like, Scott, the path is more narrow for the Hawkeyes, but I also feel like, the point spread didn't really move much. It's still 2.5, 3 points. I know a lot of Iowa fans are spooked by what they saw last week, but the odds makers didn't budge really. That tells me, you see this all the time in football, Scott. Week 1 is sometimes an outlier. Remember that one year that the Bears beat the 49ers in week 1? Yeah, Bears sucked that year, and 49ers were great that year. But it happens, I think there was one year Tom Brady's had bad. I mean, it's just it happens. It happens. So I'm sticking with the Hawkeyes, Scott. I've got them winning 23-20. I picked them in the preseason. I don't feel like I'm ready to flip that pick. Now, I think it's a very scary game. I think it's a toss-up at best for the Hawkeyes, but I'm going to stick with the Hawkeyes just because I think we've seen this before. We talked about the Ference aspect of it. I think Iowa can do it. Gronowski's going to have to play well. They can't win if Gronowski doesn't play well. I think he's going to have to play well. I like Tim Lester as a coordinator. I believe in Seth Wallace. I believe in Phil Parker, and heck, I believe in Kyle Conrady is a great kicker, but I also believe in Drew Stevens as well for the Hawkeyes. So I got the Hawkeyes winning on a Stevens field goal. Maybe not at the gun, but they win by 3.
Okay, wow. Every year it's like the most anxious feeling. I feel like Mark Gronowski in the first quarter trying to make this projection here. I all off season I thought I'm going to pick Iowa to win this game. Iowa State's going to revert back to the mean. Because teams like Iowa State and Iowa in the past, and have when they one year when they win the close games, the next year they go the opposite way And I still think that's really strong. So it's almost a coin flip for me, Chad. I'm going to go 24-23, but I think I'm going to go with the Cyclones. And I think that it could go either way, and it would not surprise me. So I'm actually going to take Iowa in the points. I'm going to go.
There you go. Way to hedge it.
I'm going to hedge it. That I'm betting terms. I'm taking the Hawkeyes, but in straight up, I think I'm going to take the Clones by 1 like last year, but. Again, nothing would surprise me here.
Yeah, it's going to be it really is just a fun matchup. I love talking about tight games that are come down to decisions, turnovers, the bounce of a ball, who plays well, coaching. I mean, Kirk Ference is going to have to make some coaching decision that matters on Saturday. Matt Campbell will have to do the same. Is it a 4th down? Is it a LeVar Woods fake? There's going to be something crazy this game always has something crazy that happens. It did last year. I mean, just go back every game. Every year has had something wild that you just don't expect. So we both predicted low 20s. It'll probably be like that one year, what was the 44-41 in Ames when Nate Stanley threw 5 touchdown passes and Amir Smith-Marset walked it off. You know what I mean? Like it's something crazy happens every year.
We've seen, in this span, which there's 10 out of the last 12 have been won by the road team.
Yeah.
You've seen 2 games go into overtime at 44-41. You've seen 1-point victories, and both of them were split. You've seen, field goals decide these games like last year.
14.
14. You saw that one in Iowa City. You just got to be prepared for anything. And then, I remember, Steele Jantz. Some of these guys just come out of nowhere and have unreal games. And there's only been one real blowout, and that was Campbell's first year in 16. But, I think he would suggest now that was the best thing that happened to him, because when that happened, that's when he had to come to Jesus with his team and basically said, if you're not going to work, then you're done. Get out of here. And they started playing better after that. Won a few games, not many, but then the next year it set the table for them. And And so, the legends are made in great games and great opportunities, and they've certainly got that now. And there's a big, of course, I wrote about, how important this game is, who's on a better trajectory, going forward. In this era, would you rather be Iowa or Iowa State in this new CFP era? And we talked a little bit about that at the outset, but I kind of framed it, and I talked to people on both sides. And one is that when you look at Iowa, they get almost $50 million more from the Big Ten than what Iowa State gets from the Big 12. So athletic department, it's no brainer. I mean, when you get that kind of check. Then you also have the CFP part of it. Iowa has a better path to the CFP, even by not winning the conference. Last year, 4 Big Ten teams made it. Right now, there's 5 Big Ten teams in the top 15, and they're not even getting a vote. If they win, they do. That also allows you, with that kind of competition, to make sure you're in position, even if you don't win the Big Ten championship. However, to win the Big Ten championship now is more difficult than ever, and it was always difficult. And so going forward for Iowa State, you might not have the money. You're not having the money, no question. You're not going to have the holistic CFP access that Iowa or Big Ten or SEC teams get. However, your path to a championship has never been better. You don't have Oklahoma. You don't have Texas. You don't have some of the other teams that really stood in your way. Everybody is at pretty much eye level in the Big 12 financially, recruiting wise, history. So there for who and I threw that question out there. My verdict is it kind of depends on the year. Big picture, you want to be Iowa, but if you're is Iowa ever going to win the national title? I don't think so. But if you win a conference championship, that's a historic statement. Mm-hmm. So I think I think you can argue either way on who would you rather be at this juncture in time.
Yeah, and I would say this is a very big compliment to Iowa State. Is Jamie Pollard hired a great coach in Matt Campbell, no question about it. It's the same conversation we've had kind of with Iowa too. Like if you hire the wrong football coach, you could become Purdue in a hurry.
Yeah.
If you hire, if Matt Campbell at some point does go take another job, because again, I don't know him from Adam, but if SEC money is calling, and they can pay their rosters, $20.5 million and then some, and he wants a chance to win at the highest level, the national championship level. Does he make the jump? And then what? Maybe Iowa State has a great hire after that coming. You never know, but you could also. That could go downhill quick. Either franchise, could. So right at this moment, though, yeah, I think they're both in good spots, to be honest. I mean, Iowa State. To me, the Big 12 now is like a 16-team Big 10 West almost.
Yeah.
Like Utah's like Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And the Cyclones are kind of like Iowa. They play like Iowa. They've got a chance every year. They're going to win 7 games at least, probably most years. Then every once in a while they'll win 11, like they did last year. But it's just you got to beat 16. You got to be the best out of 16 teams. That's still hard to do, Scott.
For sure. I mean, Iowa won the Big Ten West at least once by surviving, and another time they needed help. And so it's a challenge, and they're playing teams like them. TCU is a good program. Baylor has been a good program. Arizona State came from nowhere last year, and if it wasn't for Indiana, it would have been the best story in the country. BYU has history. Oklahoma State stunk last year, but with Mike Gundy, he's right there with Kirk as far as longevity and success, and you throw on Kansas State. So they're and then even the newbies, Cincinnati and UCF have had great success from time to time. So there's just it's a good, fun league that's not going to get a lot of respect. But and it's going to be challenging. And I think most years you're looking at your champion at best being 8-1, unless they're just a super team. And, like last year, you had a 4-way tie at 7-2. That's probably going to be more likely than not, which also means it's very difficult to get in the playoff, because if you're playing those types of teams, it's harder to impress a committee that's looking at, hey, they're playing Oregon, hey, they're playing Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, or in the SEC, that whole mess. But I agree with you, though. These two coaches are two of the very best in college football at development. Mm-hmm. No question. And I look at Matt Campbell, and he does it his way, but his way is almost identical to what Kirk does. I mean, they're not the same, but the way they build, the way they talk, the way they do things in such an orchestrated manner. They could go and coach at a Blue Blood and have just as much or more success. They could go anywhere they want and have that kind of success. And I think it's just, what you fear for either one of them is the scenario you laid out. Kirk's going to retire at some point. Mm-hmm. You make the wrong move there. And in this league now, it's going to be really hard to get from 16 to 4, that's going to get really hard. And then likewise, Iowa State's history. Matt Campbell is by far I'll say the best coach they've ever had in any sport, even over some of the basketball coaches, because he's been a consistent winner in football, and they've never had that. At this point, you would be concerned, but not surprised if he just says, you know what, I want to take that next step and win go for a championship and go to Auburn or Oklahoma or something like that, or Penn State or something. But that said, he's done a remarkable job at Iowa State, and this team proves it. Because good coaches can take a good collection of players and have success, but great coaches are the ones who can do it over and over and over again, especially at a developmental program. And both of these coaches have done that over a decade and 27 years for the other one.
And that's why this game is going to be so much fun on Saturday. Just a great matchup, a lot of fun. 11 a.m. Fox, Jack Trice Stadium. Scott, you'll be there, right? You'll be there? Yep, we'll both be there in the press box. Hopefully beat all the traffic. So good show, man. We went long, Aiden, but this is the week to go long, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, for Scott Dochterman, this is Chad Leistikow. We will talk to you next week from the Channel Seed Studios and Legends and Listeners, only on Iowa Everywhere.